It was early morning in Milwaukee, the kind of morning where the cold seemed to linger just a little too long and the light took its time breaking through the blinds. I woke up alone, the other side of the bed undisturbed, her pillows still plump and untouched. A faint chill hung in the room, though whether it came from the weather or the growing distance between us, I couldn't say. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, listening to the hum of the refrigerator down the hall. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful but vacant. We weren't always like this. There used to be mornings when she'd wake me with a laugh or crawl back under the covers after her workout just to talk about nonsense for 10 more minutes. Lately, though, she was just gone. Physically present, sure. Emotionally? That was a different story. I pulled on a sweatshirt and padded barefoot to the kitchen. That's when I saw it. There on the kitchen table were the first signs that something was truly wrong. An empty wine glass sat off to the side, its rim stained with a deep red lipstick she didn't wear. Not anymore. She had swapped those bold shades for subtle nudes months ago, claiming they felt more her. But this wasn't subtle. This was vibrant. Sultry. Intentional. Beside the wine glass was a coffee cup I had never seen before. It was thick, heavy ceramic, the kind you'd find in an old diner, chipped just slightly along the lip. Our mugs were all matching white porcelain, a gift from her mother when we moved in together. This wasn't one of ours. But it was the jacket that stopped me in my tracks. Draped over the back of one of our dining chairs like a forgotten afterthought was a man's leather jacket. Brown, worn in, with scuffed elbows and a broken-in collar. It looked lived in. Familiar in a way that made me uneasy. I walked over slowly, my hand hovering above the jacket but not quite touching it. It was too big to be hers, clearly. And I had never seen it before. My mind jumped to rationalizations, maybe it was Kelsey's boyfriend's, maybe someone dropped it off. But that didn't explain the lipstick. Or the coffee cup. Or the wine glass, still wet inside. She wasn't home. She hadn't been when I went to bed and she wasn't here now. The unease settled deep in my gut like lead. I stared at the objects on the table, trying to piece them together like clues in some mystery I didn't want to solve. My first instinct wasn't anger. It was confusion. And beneath that fear, I walked back to the bedroom, checking my phone. No messages. No missed calls. Just the last text she had sent me around 8:15 p.m. the night before, meeting Kelsey at the studio. Don't wait up, love? I didn't think much of it then. Lately, she'd been taking a lot of late classes, spin, Pilates, yoga. She said it helped her decompress. I wanted to believe that. God, I did. I paced the kitchen for a while, thinking. Rationalizing. Telling myself maybe I just hadn't noticed that coffee mug before. Maybe the jacket belonged to someone she ran into after class. Maybe they had a drink to catch up and he left his things behind. Maybe. The problem was I didn't believe any of it. Not really. She walked in just past 7 a.m. Her ponytail was wet like she'd just showered. She wore black leggings and a gray cropped hoodie. Her gym bag dangled from her shoulder and she had that post-workout glow she always claimed came from pushing through the burn. She smiled when she saw me standing in the kitchen. Morning, she said, walking over to give me a quick peck on the cheek, just like she always did. Just like everything was fine. Morning, I said, voice flat. She breezed right past me, not even glancing at the table. Not at the wine glass, not at the jacket, not at the mug. She didn't falter. If she noticed, she gave no sign. Spin class ran long. Amanda was running late and they started without her, so she doubled the warm-up. Brutal. She opened the fridge, took out almond milk, and poured herself a glass like it was any other day. I just watched her. The calmness in her tone felt manufactured. The kind of easy cadence you only get when you've rehearsed every word. When you've had time to think through your answers. When you know someone might be watching closely. She sipped her milk and leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. You okay? She asked casually, not looking up. Yeah, I said. Did Kelsey stay over last night? She didn't miss a beat. No, she had an early shift at the hospital. I just came home after class, showered at the gym. Fell asleep on the couch. I nodded slowly. Right? Still, she didn't look at me. Was there a guest last night? I asked. That got her attention. Her eyes lifted, brows pinching together just slightly. What do you mean? There's a man's jacket on the chair, I said. And a coffee mug I don't recognize. She followed my gaze, then offered a small, tight laugh. Oh yeah, that's Kelsey's boyfriend's. He picked her up last night after the studio. She forgot her bag, so they came up for a minute while I grabbed it. I waited. They were here, like 5 minutes. I didn't think to mention it. She shrugged. Sorry. The story was plausible. Clean. Too clean. What about the wine? I asked. Just one glass. I couldn't sleep. She was so calm. So steady. She had always been good at talking her way out of things, arguments, parking tickets, misunderstandings. It was SK*LL. One I used to admire. Now, I wasn't sure. I didn't press her further. Didn't accuse. Didn't ask why she didn't text me when she got home, or why she didn't mention Kelsey's boyfriend being here, or why there was still lipstick on the rim of the glass. I just nodded. Okay, I said. She smiled again. Want breakfast? I shook my head. I'm good. I left the kitchen and walked into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I stood at the sink, staring at myself in the mirror. Something in me felt different. Like a splinter had driven deep into the foundation of what we were, what I believed about us. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was overreacting. But in that moment, staring into the tired eyes of the man in the mirror, I felt it. Something had cracked. She left for work not long after, kissed me goodbye at the door like everything was normal, like the leather jacket, the lipstick-stained glass, the story she rattled off without a pause, all meant nothing. I watched her walk to the elevator, gym bag still slung over her shoulder, earbuds already in, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't just rewritten the past 12 hours. The moment the door shut behind her, I exhaled for what felt like the first time since I woke up. That lingering tightness in my chest, the kind that hadn't left me since I saw that damn jacket, only seemed to get worse. I didn't head to work right away. Instead, I stood in the middle of our apartment, turning in slow circles, scanning everything like I was seeing it for the first time. And in a way, I was. The kitchen still smelled like her perfume. Light, citrusy. It clung to the air like a shadow. I reached out and picked up the coffee mug again, holding it under the faucet, watching the brown remnants swirl down the drain. I didn't know why I did it. Maybe it was symbolic. Maybe it was just one thing I could control. Then I sat down, phone in hand, and started to scroll through my mental timeline. The signs had always been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. She stopped wearing her wedding ring about 6 months ago. It's just not comfortable, she'd said, spinning it off her finger with a smile. Makes my skin itch after workouts. I offered to get it resized, but she waved me off. It sat on her nightstand for weeks, then disappeared entirely. When I asked about it again, she shrugged. I probably left it at the studio. That was months ago. It never turned up. Then there was her wardrobe. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Women change styles, right? But her clothes had shifted. Subtly at first, ripped jeans instead of slacks, more fitted tops. Then more dramatic, deep-cut blouses, high heels she used to say hurt her knees. New lingerie tags buried in the laundry, things she never wore around me. I told myself she was just embracing confidence. That she was finding herself. Empowered. She deserved that. But now it all felt like a story I had written in my head to avoid seeing the real one playing out in front of me. Her phone was another clue. Always face down. Always locked. She used to toss it on the couch, leave it charging in the kitchen overnight. Now it went everywhere with her bathroom, laundry room, even into the shower sometimes. I'd walk into a room and she'd quickly tap the screen, slip it into her pocket, or suddenly remember she needed to check something in another room. Notifications were silenced. She started using Do Not Disturb more often, saying she was overwhelmed and needed peace. That one hurt because I bought it. I believed she was stressed and trying to protect her mental health. Family dinners, those rare little rituals we built our marriage around, became fewer and farther between. At first, she blamed work. Big project this quarter, I swear it'll ease up soon. But it never did. Last-minute trips started popping up. She'd pack fast and leave faster. She wouldn't FaceTime when she said she would, or her camera would suddenly not work. The Wi-Fi was always spotty. I remember one night in particular. I got off work early, miracle, really, and surprised her by coming home at 4 p.m. She wasn't in the apartment, but her car was in the garage. I called out. Nothing. That's when I heard her voice. She was on the patio, barefoot, talking to someone on the phone. Her voice was softer than usual, almost hushed. Flirtatious. I couldn't hear the other person, but I heard the way she laughed. A laugh I hadn't heard in months. Like, real. Then she noticed me through the sliding door. Her eyes widened for a half second, and then she ended the call mid-sentence. Hey babe, she said, forcing a smile. Didn't hear you come in. I asked who she was talking to. She said it was her cousin. Jess had a rough week, she claimed. I was trying to cheer her up. I nodded. Didn't question it. Why would I? I trusted her. But that laugh, that wasn't for family. Another memory hit me like S***er punch. A month ago, She asked me to help her fix a bug on her Instagram settings. I'm no tech wizard, but she said some of her friends couldn't see her stories. I poked around her phone, and something strange stood out. My account was missing from her close friends list. At the time, I assumed it was a mistake, something she forgot to re-add after updating her profile. But I never got that green circle again. Not once. I asked her once, jokingly, "Hey, did I get demoted or something?" She laughed, brushed it off. It's probably just a glitch. But now I wondered what those stories were hiding. What she didn't want me to see. I opened my laptop and scrolled through our shared photo folder. Hundreds of pictures, vacations, weddings, birthdays. We used to take selfies every weekend. She'd post them with captions like, "Lucky girl," and "He's my favorite person." The post stopped 6 months ago. Not one photo of us. Not even a mention. I checked her Instagram. Full of sunsets, solo sh*ts, and quotes about self-discovery. No mention of me. You wouldn't know she was married. You wouldn't even know I existed. Felt like a slow erasure. Like I was being edited out of her life, one setting, one story, one excuse at a time. I closed the laptop. There's a peculiar kind of pain in realizing the warmth that once defined your home has long since vanished. That moment when the place you built together, your shared sanctuary, starts to feel like a stage. The rooms feel emptier even when they're full. The silences become louder. You catch yourself rereading old texts, comparing them to the new ones, trying to find where the shift began. I walked into the closet and looked at her side. It was organized, color-coded like always. But there were pieces I hadn't seen before. Shoes that had never touched our hallway. Tops I didn't recognize. I pulled open her drawer. Tucked between her workout clothes were receipts from places she never mentioned, bars downtown, small restaurants out in Bayview. One was from a jazz lounge neither of us had ever visited. It was dated 3 weeks ago, a Friday. She told me she was home that night, tired from a spin double. The next drawer held more than receipts. A second phone. Black, older model. No case. No charger. It was powered off. My hands were sweating. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I stared at it, heart hammering in my chest, stomach in knots. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. The signs were all there. They'd been there. I had just chosen to trust her. And maybe that's what hurt most of all. It was a Thursday when everything finally broke. Just after noon. The kind of gray-skied afternoon where everything feels like it's holding its breath before a storm. I left work early under the pretense of a headache. That wasn't a lie exactly, I did have one. It had been pulsing behind my eyes for weeks, made of sleepless nights, second-guessing, and that gnawing, dull ache of suspicion. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even tell anyone I was leaving. I just grabbed my keys, got in the car, and started driving toward home with one goal in mind. I was going to surprise her. Not in the sweet, spontaneous way I used to, showing up with takeout or flowers. No, this was a different kind of surprise. I had this stupid idea in my head that if I just walked in unannounced, I'd either find peace or proof. Either way, I needed clarity. The closer I got to our building, the more my stomach twisted. My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my knuckles turned white. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. That I'd walk in and she'd be folding laundry or watching one of those home renovation shows she loved. That maybe she'd be annoyed at the interruption but happy to see me. I parked in the garage, took the elevator up in silence, and stepped into the hallway like I was stepping into enemy territory. The moment I opened the front door, I knew. There was music playing. Soft, sultry jazz. Something old, Ella Fitzgerald, maybe. Her voice floated through the apartment like it belonged to someone else's life. It wasn't the kind of music we usually listen to. It wasn't playing for me. I stood there, frozen in the doorway. Laughter echoed down the hall from the direction of our bedroom. It wasn't hers, not exactly. Not the version of her I knew. It was higher, lighter, flirty. I had to steady myself against the doorframe. The sound was like a knife to the chest, because it told me everything before I even moved a step. I didn't shout, didn't storm in. I didn't want to see it, not really. I walked slowly toward the bedroom. The door was half open, the way she always left it when she didn't want to fully commit to privacy. The bed was unmade. Sheets tangled like there'd been a struggle, of passion or panic. I couldn't tell. Pillows scattered. A sock on the floor that didn't belong to me. Just inside the door, near the edge of the rug, were a pair of shoes. Men's. Black leather worn at the heels. And beside them a gym bag that wasn't ours. Movement came from the bathroom. Shadows shifting behind the frosted glass. I didn't need to see any more. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I turned around, walked straight out the door, and didn't look back. Down the hallway, back into the elevator, out into the afternoon light that suddenly felt far too bright. I sat in my car for what must have been 20 minutes, staring out the windshield like I was waiting for someone to shake me awake. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I checked my phone twice, maybe 3 times out of reflex. No messages. No calls. Of course not. It wasn't until I drove away, miles away, that the first message came in. A short text from her. "Can we talk?" Followed by another. "I can explain." Then, "Please don't shut me out. Let me explain everything. It's not what you think." I didn't answer. She followed with a flurry of texts. Apologies, excuses, statements dressed up as vulnerability. It didn't mean anything. It was just once. I didn't plan for it to happen. "Please, I love you." I stared at them one by one as they came in. They felt cold, calculated, like she was reading from a playbook. I pulled over on the side of some road I didn't recognize and just sat there, watching the words pile up. At some point, I opened our shared photo folder again. I scrolled through pictures of us in better times, smiling in the mountains, laughing at a wedding, her in that blue dress she loved, the one I always said made her look like something out of a dream. My heart cracked all over again. I remembered a moment so vividly it felt like I was reliving it. We were at a dinner party, maybe a year ago. She was sitting beside me, holding my hand under the table. She leaned over and whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." Right as someone started a toast. I believed her. But now, all I could see was the way she looked through me that morning as she lied. The lipstick on a wine glass. The deliberate calm in her voice. The jacket on the chair. I wanted to scream. Instead, I drove. Hours later, long after sunset, I came home. She was there, of course, waiting. The lights were low. The music was off. The apartment was spotless, like she tried to scrub the evidence off the walls. She stood when I walked in. Her face was red, her eyes swollen. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. "Don't," I said. "Not yet." She nodded, biting her lip, then sat down again like a scolded child. I didn't ask her who he was. I didn't ask how long. I didn't ask why. I already knew. What haunted me more than the betrayal was the familiarity of it. The way she moved through our home after being with someone else. The ease with which she could slip back into the routine of us, like she hadn't just detonated a bomb. Later that night, I sat in the guest room, the one she never used, and tried to write down everything I felt. But the words didn't come. The only thing I could manage was a single sentence. She made it look easy. I didn't leave that night. I probably should have. A better man might have slammed the door, checked into a motel, or driven until he forgot his name. But I didn't. I stayed, not out of forgiveness, not even out of indecision. I stayed because I didn't want her to have the last move. I didn't want to look back and wonder what she might have said or done in the silence after my absence. She slept in the bedroom. I didn't ask her to leave. I slept in the guest room, on the firm mattress we bought for company, the one we used maybe twice in all the years we'd lived here. It still smelled like dust and linen spray, like a room reserved for people who were meant to stay only temporarily. In a cruel way, it suited me now. The days that followed weren't explosive. They were quiet, numb. We moved around each other like strangers who had once loved each other deeply, but now spoke in polite, stilted sentences. She made coffee in the morning. I didn't drink it. She folded my laundry and left it in a neat pile on the bed. I refolded it and moved it to a drawer she no longer opened. We didn't fight. We didn't cry. There were no accusations thrown across the room. No apologies on loop. It was worse than that. It was stillness. The kind of stillness that seeps into your bones and starts to calcify everything you used to feel. I started gathering my things, quietly, systematically. Things that were mine and only mine. Journals I hadn't touched in years, tax documents, my grandfather's watch in the back of the junk drawer. It felt like preparing for a move I hadn't officially decided on, but I knew was inevitable. The photos were the hardest. Not the ones on the walls, but the ones tucked into drawers, albums, forgotten corners of digital folders. I found a picture from our first vacation together. A grainy, poorly framed selfie of us on a kayak in Michigan. I remember the water was freezing, and we both fell in laughing. We were soaked and shivering, and it was the happiest we'd ever been. I stared at it for a long time before slipping it into the folder marked Archive. Not trash, just no longer for display. She tried talking to me a few times. Her voice was soft, tentative, almost like she was afraid of spooking a wild animal. She'd sit on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees, and ask things like, "Do you want to eat together tonight?" Or, "Can we talk about this soon?" I never said no, but I never said yes either. I'd nod. Maybe. I'll let you know. I didn't mean to punish her with silence. I just couldn't force myself to pretend. Not anymore. The apartment began to feel less like a home and more like a museum. A display of artifacts from a life we no longer lived. Her laugh didn't echo down the hallway. The kitchen didn't smell like her Sunday morning cinnamon rolls. The couch was no longer a place to cuddle up with a movie. It was neutral territory, where neither of us lingered too long. I started noticing the small things. The toothbrush she left on the sink was no longer angled next to mine. She had moved it to the other end, as if acknowledging the emotional miles between us. The playlist she used to put on while cleaning, Motown hits and acoustic covers, was now replaced with podcasts she listened to alone, earbuds in, eyes vacant. We stopped touching. No hand on my shoulder as she passed me in the hallway. No goodnight kiss. Not even the accidental brushing of fingers when we reached for the same door handle. One morning, I woke up and found her sitting on the floor of the living room, surrounded by photo albums. She looked up at me, startled, like she'd been caught snooping through someone else's memories. "I thought I'd organized these," she said. I didn't respond. I just watched her. She held up one picture, our anniversary dinner from 3 years ago. Candlelight wine. Her in that green dress I bought her on a whim. I had surprised her with it, and she cried when she opened the box. She stared at the photo for a long time, then flipped it over and tucked it into a pile marked, "Keep." I walked past her without a word. That afternoon, I went out for a drive. No destination in mind. Just wanted to breathe air that hadn't been exhaled through broken promises. I ended up at the lake. Sat on a bench, watched the water roll in and out. I used to love coming here with her. She'd bring coffee in thermoses, and we'd watch the sun rise, pretending the world stopped for us. Now, it felt like the world had moved on, and I was the only one left watching. When I got back home, she was in the kitchen, cooking something. The scent of garlic and butter filled the apartment, but it didn't comfort me. It felt performative, like she was trying to reclaim normalcy through the ritual of dinner, as if making my favorite pasta might stitch the torn seams between us. "Smells good," I said, surprising even myself. She turned, hopeful. "It's your favorite." I nodded but didn't sit down. "Are you hungry?" I wanted to be. I wasn't. I ended up eating half a bowl in silence. She tried to fill the space with small talk, work, the weather, a documentary she watched. I nodded in the right places, even smiled once or twice. But it felt hollow, like we were both pretending to be people who hadn't been gutted by betrayal. Afterward, she cleaned up while I sat in the living room. No music, just the sound of water running and silverware clinking against porcelain. That night I couldn't sleep. I got up and wandered the apartment like a ghost, touching furniture as if to prove I was still here. I ended up in the closet. I pulled down a box from the top shelf, old letters, cards, mementos. I found a note she wrote me years ago when I got promoted at work. "I'm so proud of you. You amaze me every day. I can't wait to grow old with you. I set it down gently and closed the box. In the darkness, it hit me. She had already left, long before I found the jacket, the mug, or the man's shoes in our bedroom. She left when the texts became lies, when her eyes stopped lighting up when I walked in, when she chose silence over confession, when she gave pieces of herself to someone else without asking what that would do to me. I just hadn't noticed. The next morning, I started packing with more intent. Books I hadn't touched in years boxed. Clothes I didn't wear anymore donated. Keepsakes from our trips wrapped, not in bubble wrap, but in the quiet resignation of knowing they were now relics. She watched me but didn't interfere. Didn't ask what I was doing. Maybe she already knew. That night, I asked her, "When did you stop being happy?" She looked stunned. What? Was there a moment? Or did it just fade? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she said, "I don't know. I don't think I let myself ask that question." I nodded. That answer felt honest at least. "I think I stopped being happy when I realized I was alone while still living with you," I said. She flinched like the words had weight. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, "not for the first time." "But you did," I said. "And now I can't unfeel it." We didn't say anything else that night. She slept in the bedroom. I stayed in the guest room. But this time I left the door open. The final straw didn't come in the form of a fight. No slammed doors. No dramatic reveals. It came quietly in a moment so mundane it almost passed unnoticed until it didn't. It was a Sunday afternoon. She was out running errands, her usual euphemism for hours-long absences that never lined up with receipts or timelines. I stayed home, supposedly to do some work, but the truth was I couldn't bring myself to leave the house. Not while things still felt unfinished. We were living in this fragile equilibrium, neither together nor apart. Like a glass teetering on the edge of a counter waiting for a nudge. I had been searching for an old insurance document. Something we'd need if I was going to move forward with the lawyer I'd quietly consulted the week before. Her laptop was sitting on the kitchen table, open, screen still lit. She always left it there now like some kind of peace offering. See? Nothing to hide. But that made me trust it even less. I hesitated for a long moment before I touched it. I told myself I wasn't snooping, I was just looking for a file. But we both knew what I was doing. The screen was open to her inbox. I didn't even have to search. There it was right at the top, an email thread titled Weekend Plans Yellow Heart. The most recent message was from someone named Nick, a name that, until that moment, had never existed in my understanding of her world. No friend named Nick. No coworker. No story. The email was short. Hotels booked. Sent the confirmation to your phone. Got the tickets too, front row, just like you wanted. Can't wait to finally have you all to myself. N. Below that, the chain revealed the details, a weekend getaway scheduled for the end of the month. The weekend of my birthday. A concert I once mentioned in passing, an artist I loved but never thought to buy tickets for because she said she didn't like live shows. I scrolled further. There was a PDF attachment. It included a hotel reservation for 2 King Suite Ocean View. Dinner for 2 at a Michelin-starred restaurant. The whole thing planned down to the hour. The date glared at me from the top of the itinerary. Saturday, 7 p.m. My birthday. The chair scraped loudly as I stood, heart pounding in my chest like a drum line. I walked to the kitchen, each step deliberate, measured. The drawer squealed open. I pulled out the knife, not in rage, but with the eerie calm of a man who had finally made peace with the truth. I returned to the laptop, selected the PDF, and printed 2 copies. Then I went to the drawer where she kept concert tickets, gift cards, and other memorabilia in a little wooden box labeled Fun Stuff. The irony wasn't lost on me. There, beneath an old boarding pass from our honeymoon, I found them. 2 tickets. Front row. Her handwriting on the envelope, for us Black Heart. I brought the envelope to the kitchen. Set it on the table. Laid the printed itinerary beside it. And with the knife still in hand, I sliced each ticket in half. Slowly. Cleanly. No emotion. Just finality. I didn't stop at the tickets. I sliced through the envelope, the printouts, the fake sentiment inked in her handwriting. I left the pieces scattered like petals from a funeral arrangement. That was all I needed to do. When she came home a few hours later, the apartment smelled like lemon from the cleaner I'd used on the counters. She walked in carrying a grocery bag, humming a tune, probably whatever she had played in Nick's car. Her keys clinked against the bowl by the door. "Hey," she called out. "I picked up stuff for that pasta you like." She froze when she saw the mess on the table. Her eyes flicked from the cut-up tickets to the knife beside them, then up to me. I was standing across the room, leaning against the counter, arms folded. She didn't speak right away. Didn't even move. Finally, she asked, "What is this?" I could ask you the same. Her mouth opened slightly as if to deny it. Then she saw the hotel itinerary, her own email printed in black and white. Her face fell. There were no tears this time. No gasps or shocked expressions. Just a kind of stillness. A cornered animal deciding whether to fight or surrender. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "Don't," I replied. "Don't ruin the word." Silence stretched between us. She stepped forward slowly. "Let me explain." "There's nothing left to explain. It wasn't supposed to go this far." I laughed, an empty, hollow thing. "You planned a weekend away on my birthday. Booked a room. Bought tickets. What part of that wasn't far?" She sat down slowly, the way people sit in church pews during funerals. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," I said. "Again. And this time you didn't even try to hide it." She looked up. "You've been so distant." "No," I said. "I've been quiet." "You don't get to call that distance. You built the gap." She started crying then, small, pitiful sobs that sounded more like frustration than sorrow. I stayed where I was. No rush to comfort. No instinct to bridge the chasm. Something inside me had shifted. It wasn't rage. It was release. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said, my voice low. "You replaced me. You made memories with someone else in the future we were supposed to share." She didn't deny it. Instead, she reached out as if touching my hand would unbreak everything. I stepped back. "You don't get to be close to me," I said. And just like that, it was over. Not legally, not formally, but in all the ways that mattered. I left the cut-up pieces of her new life on the table. I walked past her, past the remnants of us, and into the guest room. I closed the door gently behind me. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't even dream. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of nothing. And it was the most peace I'd felt in weeks. The next morning, I packed without ceremony. There were no loud confrontations or melodramatic exits. Just a man folding clothes into a suitcase, slipping old documents into a folder, and leaving behind a marriage like it was a hotel stay that had run a night too long. I left her a note. Not poetic. Not cruel. Just a list of things I'd taken, my laptop, my journals, the old box of photos, and a line at the bottom, "Please forward any mail to my brother's place. You know the address." And then I was gone. I drove straight to Charlotte. My younger brother lived there, an easygoing guy with a spare room and a way of talking that made you forget your life was falling apart. He didn't ask questions when I showed up at his door with 2 bags and a face that probably looked like it hadn't slept in days. We didn't talk much those first few days. He gave me space. I gave him silence. I spent most of the time sitting on his porch, scribbling in a cheap notebook. Not with emotion, not yet. Just facts. Dates. Conversations. The first time her phone was always face down. The day she started showering at the gym. The receipt from that jazz lounge. I wrote it all down like an accountant auditing the wreckage. Then came the message. It was short. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Just, "I hope you're safe. I left something in the guest room for you. You'll know what it is." There was an attachment. I didn't open it. Some things are too final for explanation. Some endings don't need footnotes. A few weeks later, I found myself back in Milwaukee, not at our apartment, but in a quiet cafe near the park we used to walk through when we still believed in us. She was already there. She looked smaller somehow. Maybe it was the hoodie, maybe the weight she'd lost. Maybe the guilt. She didn't reach for my hand. Didn't cry. She spoke first. "I panicked," she said. "I got lost in the pressure. In the routine. In who I thought I was supposed to be. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being honest with you, with myself." I nodded. Let her talk. She rambled about fear. About disillusionment. About how she'd mistaken excitement for meaning. I listened, quiet still. When she finished, I stood, pulled out a few bills for the coffee, and placed them on the table. She looked up, searching my face for something: anger, softness, a door left ajar. I gave her none of it. Outside, I walked a block, then 2. Then I pulled out my phone and sent her one last message. No words. Just a period. A full stop. And with that, I kept walking. Not toward closure. Not towards something new. Just forward. That was enough.